something we did not do before the map was installed. And just beyond the bridge on the right is a massive building that some of you might recognize as Gotham City Bank from the opening sequence of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. In fact, when they zip line onto the roof of that building, they do so from Gateway Center 4. And at the end of that sequence, those school buses, they go the wrong way down Van Buren Street. Of course, it's all just movie magic. This isn't even a bank. This is the Old Main Post Office, completed in 1932. It was the largest post office in the world at the time, and for a good reason, since Chicago was the center of the mail order catalog industry. It's another great example of Art Deco architecture, long vertical lines, deep inside windows, geometric ornamentation. After over 60 years of service, the post office was closed in 1996. It was purchased 20 years later, and the new owners spent $500 million converting it into offices to reopen in 2019. Now that $500 million price tag doesn't even include the purchase price of the building, but it does include a 3.5-acre rooftop park available for tenants and their guests. Now, earlier in the tour, I mentioned that Chicago was incorporated in 1833, but I also told you that the oldest building on the tour was Fulton House, constructed in 1898. And so you might be wondering why we won't see anything older than that. And aside from the standard redevelopment that's very common in many major cities, we've got another pretty good reason for that. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Now this is going to be the most substantial bit of history that I'm going to throw at you on the tour, because I think it's important to understand how the Great Chicago Fire and the events that followed had a profound impact on the architecture of the city. Now since this bit of history begins with the story of destruction, there's unfortunately not a lot to look at that goes along with it. But I'm about to fit like 40 years worth of history into just under 5 minutes, so if that doesn't impress you, well then at least it'll be quick. So the period from July 4th to October 10th of 1871 was one of the driest on record for the city of Chicago, with only 3 inches of recorded rainfall for the entire 3-month period. So when a fire broke out the evening of October 8th, in or around the barn of the O'Leary family at 137 West Jacobin Street, which is just a few blocks to the west there, a number of things would work against the city of Chicago that would lead to devastation. First, 2/3 of the structures in the city at the time were made of wood. Now this wasn't a Chicago-only problem. In many rapidly expanding cities, there's not enough time or resources to do stonework and masonry for every building that needs to go up, and so you end up with a lot of wooden structures. In fact, many of the roads and alleys were also paved with blocks of wood coated in tar. The second thing that worked against us was good old-fashioned human error. It was a long, dry period, and the firefighters were understandably overworked, but their response to the fire was timely. It was actually a mistake by a watchman on duty that sent them to the wrong part of the city at the onset of the fire, and it was initially allowed to spread unchecked. The third thing that worked against us was the weather. Many folks thought that the river would act as a natural barrier, at the very least preventing the fire from spreading too far to the east. Unfortunately, 30-mile-per-hour winds picked up from the southwest, flinging burning debris across the south branch of the Chicago River, igniting several structures on the east side. Some accounts even describe the polluted river itself as ignited during the blaze. From there, the fire continued to spread to the north, where it left the river again at the main branch and ignited the roof of the city's waterworks. That building was destroyed. Those water mains dried up, and with them, any hope we had to continue fighting the fire. Over the course of 30 hours, the fire burned 3.5 square miles and left 1/3 of the city's population homeless. Now, in the days, weeks, and months that followed, aid poured into the city from around the country and around the world. But in addition to that, people came to Chicago to help rebuild, and some of those people were young architects. They wanted to leave their mark on the world, and we needed new buildings. One of those young architects